Hello and welcome to Onesies, the podcast of one season wonders and blunders. My name is Andrew.
And my name is Emily.
And this season we are talking about, well, this season we've already talked about Morton and Hayes, but the second half of the season we'll be talking about Police Squad, the 1982
82 ABC.
What? ABC. Wow, okay. Sorry, I'm not used to our ABC shows being good.
Yeah.
So Police Squad, from the creators of Airplane at that time, before they made Top Secret, and then they turned it into the successful Naked Gun franchise, which then went on to live in infamy because it co-starred O.J. Simpson. And then also the additional problems that pretty much all three of the filmmakers behind it, Jim Abrams, David Zucker, and Jerry Zucker, Zaz, have gone on to become, white supremacists. Some of them started after 9/11. Others of them just got to that point when they weren't funny anymore, really. So they just sort of just became pieces of shit.
Yeah.
So, or at least revealed it. But dragging down series lead Leslie Nielsen as well for some of their late Christian fare. But anyway, that is not what we will be talking about with Police Squad, because it turns out we've never watched anything quite as good as Police Squad on the show.
Very true. That's very true.
We'll be talking at length, I imagine, about why the fuck you would have made Morton and Hayes when Police Squad existed. It's not a matter of stealing the jokes. It's a matter of, we'll get to it. But let's go through our three things.
Oh, God, I have to pick three things?
Jeez, you have to pick three. I've got multiples in line.
God damn. Mine, I'm going to pick Bedside Manor, and I don't even know. Oh, yes, I do remember what that is. Okay. These are in no particular order. Okay. I'm going to do Freeze Frame.
Okay.
And I'm going to do Slow Motion Death Scene.
Okay. I will do Monster Took Daddy to Heaven.
Oh my God. That was part of my Bedside Manor one.
Oh, is it? Okay.
That's fine. That's fine.
That's okay, because I'll just pick another one, such as Leslie Nielsen is the airplane pilot.
Yeah.
Okay. All Night Wicker Places. And oh shit. I am an animal, I'm an animal, I am a human being.
Perfect.
And then basically the finale, we'll just have to go through the whole thing because there are multiple great bits in that. But,
yeah. We're going to have fun, I think. Oh my God.
I know, it's so weird. You just watch it and you can't stop laughing.
I was delighted. We should have, in retrospect, we should have watched this immediately after Automan, because there's so many things that we could parallels here.
True.
Obviously, Automan, the intention of Automan is different than the intention of Police Squad, but oh man, oh, so good. Okay.
All right.
So Police Squad in color.
In color, my first note.
Mine too. We start with the introduction. The theme song is fantastic. It's on Wikipedia who wrote it. The theme song is by Ira Newborn.
Yep.
The theme from Police Squad, fucking great. It's like classic. Is that the music they used in Naked Gun too?
He composed at least the first one. Aaron Newborn's weird because his name's very familiar, but he's mostly did comedies of the John Hughes variety before. Basically, is he still alive? He basically retired in 2000, it looks like. What did he do after that? He's credited as writing reality shows, which I imagine is a mistake on... This is weird. What does his biography say? Hold on, let's see. He has a very small biography. He's still alive. He was born in 49, but retiring in 99 is a little weird. Let's see here.
Pretty young.
Police Squad. No. He wrote some songs. He did the music for all three Police Squads, it looks like. Did the music for Caddyshack 2.
Your
And
favorite.
my favorite. Actually, he also did the music for Innocent Blood, which is one of my favorites. But no, he basically retired in '98 and didn't do television. I don't know.
Must have been pretty lucrative doing all that.
Adjunct faculty at NYU.
Oh.
I don't know. His last movie was Basketball for David Zucker. He did Mallrats, Jerky Boys the movie.
Ooh, Jerky Boys.
Brain Donors, Collision Course. So basically his highlights were a combination of, he did the Dragnet music, which is the 87 Dragnet, which is really appropriate considering that movie is basically like, oh shit, we can't do Dragnet as
we can't lampoon it because Police Squad already did it.
Yeah. He also did Into the Night, a very good one of John Landis's two great movies, I think. Okay, so, and he also did Wise Guys, Brian De Palma. So yeah, comedy music guy in the 80s and 90s who has mysteriously disappeared, which is too bad because he's good. And this was a really good score.
Yeah.
But yes, so the opening titles also have the stars.
Yes.
And so this is going to be a recurring bit that they have. The third star in this one is Rex Hamilton as Abe Lincoln, who gets shot in the theater. He's at the theater.
But the running gag is they introduce the character. So it's Leslie Nielsen, and he does a cop thing, and he holds his gun out and he starts shooting, like having a shootout with somebody. And then they introduce Alan North, and Alan North is in the police headquarters, and a shootout ensues and chaos ensues.
Yes.
And he starts shooting. So when they introduce Rex Hamilton as Abe Lincoln, he gets shot through the hat, the very tall hat, and then turns around with a gun and starts having a shootout, presumably. So it's part of a running gag, which we're going to have a lot of that. We're going to have a lot of it.
And then special guest star Lauren Green, who then dies immediately, which is also going to be a running gag.
So yes, this is a running gag, and he doesn't even make an appearance in the episode. He's literally in the opening credits.
Well, neither does Abe Lincoln. So
yeah.
Those are their two gags.
Yeah.
And then the title gag, which is, this episode is known as A Broken Promise, while on screen it says A Substantial Gift, or vice versa.
I don't remember, but
it's one of the two things. Yeah, it's very funny. Neither of them have to do with the content of the episode.
No. But it's very funny, and that will also be a running gag. We're going to have a lot of the running gags. Oh.
Yes. So the action opens in a check cashing place. And immediately...
It's not a check cashing place in the modern sense of the term. It's a check cashing place in that it's a credit union.
Sorry.
Well, I didn't want people to think it's like...
Well, there's a whole bit about all the identification
that is true. That is true. So, but that's.
And this is where we meet our special guest star, Catherine Lee Scott, as Sally.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's sitting there. She argues with
the teller. Jim.
What's his last
Johnson
name? Jim Johnson.
Yeah.
You mean Jim Johnson, who owns the... Okay, so we'll get to that.
Okay.
Well, we can't do the whole bit. I didn't memorize it.
No, neither did I.
So it opens with her asking him for money because she's addicted to dental. Which is funny. So
she's treating her orthodontist as if he's some mob boss, right? Like, no, he needs his money. He'd kill his own mother for money. Like very, very silly, over the top.
And so some guy comes in who just lost his job, and he's cashing his last payroll check. And that is Mr. Twice, Mr. Ralph Twice. And so we sit there and we watch Sally rustle around in her desk or in her purse, and she pulls out a gun, and basically to get her money, she kills both the people in the shop, her coworker and the customer. And before that, we had this lengthy thing where the guys ask, while she's getting the gun ready, the reason they're distracted is because they're going through all the forms of identification he needs to present to cash a check.
And it includes turning his head and coughing. It includes spreading your toes. It's all of this ridiculous, goofy, fun stuff.
Yes.
Hilarious.
Very good stuff.
And we never see any of it, which is even better.
It's all off. It's just, oh man. I was just like, what? How did you, like, this is kind of a great pair for Morton and Hayes, just because there's no, you wouldn't think from the pedigree, like, is of 2021, 20, whatever year it is, 2022. If somebody told me Christopher Guest, Michael McKean, and Rob Reiner did a 6-episode sitcom in 1991 or 2 with Kevin Pollak, I'd be like, that's going to be good.
Well, we did. Like, we both did.
We were wrong.
We were wrong.
If somebody said, hey, the two guys who make the Trump-loving MAGA Nazi movies and the other guy who makes the Christian movies, the Trump-loving Christian movies, they all made a TV show back in 1982, we probably wouldn't say, oh, that's going to be fucking great. But it's great. It's what's also funny about it is that they are bringing very filmic sensibilities to making this episode.
Yeah.
In a way, like they're taking the Airplane style, but condensing it down to like the 25 or 28 minutes or whatever, 22 to 28. And it just works perfectly. Like, it's just endless laughs. There's no, like, next we get Leslie Nielsen coming to the scene, and he is monologuing. He has his voiceover monologue about how he wants to be assigned to the holdups in laundromats on the west side of town.
Involving nude models?
Involving nude supermodels.
Yeah.
He didn't get that case. Instead, he got this holdup at the check cashing place. So he has to drive all the way there from doing his laundry on the west side of town. It's so good. Like, this is... I don't know if they would have been able to do. I think they probably. We'll see if they're able to sustain this whole season. But I would imagine that, like a British show, they could probably do one of these every few years. But this could not have run. They would have been burnt out at episode 12 if this were a real show.
Yeah,
like just completely.
Well, but I mean, like you said, everything is a joke. It's like gag, 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 and they all land. They all land. So you couldn't sustain it just because there's not enough jokes. I mean, like, they would run out of jokes, or they would just have to end up repeating themselves because they are lampooning sort of Dragnet and police procedurals, and there's only so much material they have to work with anyway. So, God, it's so good. God, Leslie Nielsen is so good.
So good. Okay, so he gets to the crime scene. His boss, Alan North, is there.
But first, one of my favorite gags, he rolls up on, some backlot somewhere. He hits the curb and knocks over a trash can. No reason. Nobody even blinks. He gets out of the car and walks up to his boss to ask a question.
And I think this is a gag through the Naked Gun movies.
I think it is, yeah.
So then we get the crime scene where the crime photo guy is just fucking around, taking silly pictures.
And so it reminded me, in like Victorian times, you would like take pictures with dead bodies, like somebody in your family would die, and there would be these what are now, like, in modern times, like creepy looking pictures of people with dead bodies. So they're holding one of the dead guys up and taking pictures with the dead guy. And he's got the gun too with the little tag. I don't know if you noticed, beautiful little detail there. He's got like the tag. The gun is tagged because it's evidence, and he's holding it next to the dead guy. It's so stupid. I loved it so much.
Okay, so they interview Sally, except so okay. So some of the gag is Leslie Nielsen and Alan North are both idiots. I mean, like, all the cops, everybody on the show is an idiot, including the cops, right? Yes. It's not Law and Order where the cops are smart and the bad guys are idiots. It's not I presume Dragnet's something similar to that.
Yeah.
Everybody's a fucking idiot on this show. And so, except the criminal in this case, like Sally is smarter than they are, but there's no recognition of it because it would break the gag. Alan North and Leslie Nielsen do what has to be a 2 or 3 minute bit where they are getting confused about the last names and identities of all the characters.
So this is a great wordplay thing, because there's the guy who got shot, Mr. Twice. How many times did you shoot him? Once. How many times did you shoot twice? Once. It, like, all this weird stuff. It gets so jumbled up.
And there's a Mr. Once who might be the owner of the
tire company that the guy got Mr.
laid
Twice.
off
Yeah.
from.
Yeah.
There's a Jim, somebody who works at the police station who called out. Somebody called out. Like, it's endlessly funny. Like, it's, and what's makes it really interesting paired with Morton and Hayes is they tried to do this a few times and it sucked. Right?
Yeah.
Like, so we're seeing it here.
It's like Who's on First elevated into absurdity. Like,
right.
It's beautiful.
And pulled into a narrative of sorts, right?
Yeah.
Like, we don't really get any information from this scene, but what we do get is a police investigation trope scene. So it's appropriate. The characters now know each other. There's been some basic information, but it's also absurd, silly, wonderful nonsense.
Yeah.
So then this is also where they have the cigarette line that you brought up that they do.
That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, that they did on Morton and Hayes too. Yes, I know.
And they do it with coffee. They do it with other things later, I think. And I think it goes into the Naked Gun as well.
I think it does too. I do, because I
remember seeing this when I was a kid. I think they reran this on Comedy Central when I was like a teenager. And I remember that the cigarette, like, oh, cigarette? Yeah, I know. I remember the coffee thing. I thought that was the funniest shit ever. Brilliant.
Okay. So they go to...
Did they go to Twice's wife?
No, they go back to the police station, and they've already got the ballistics in. Now,
right.
Yes, the ballistics are very obviously going to be fucked up because of the way she shot them. Yeah. And the question is, are they going to discover this? Because we previously watched Automan, where they can't figure shit out. But we're about to find out that the police and police squad are better cops than Desiartes Jr. and friends. So they get to the police station, and Frank goes to the crime lab where Ed Williams is the CSI, whatever they actually called him. And he's doing a science lesson with a kid, Johnny, and talking about Johnny's glistening mother getting out of the shower.
Yeah, it's his lesson on condensation.
Yeah, it's so good. It's just so good. Because this is a gag from Airplane, but with the pedophilia removed. Basically.
Yeah. Thank goodness.
While still incredibly inappropriate, but not at least not pedophilia.
Yeah.
Okay, so they do Olsen shows Frank Drebin, Leslie Nielsen, shows him the ballistics, which he demonstrates by shooting through videotapes of Barbara Walters interviews. And he talks about it in that context, like, we shot all the way to the Burt Reynolds one where she had just gotten to asking him X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
And then he does that multiple times, and then he goes through with the second one. But basically, the ballistics are very clearly that it didn't happen the way Sally said. And this is the point where it's better cops than Autobad, because they never would have fucking figured this out.
Yeah. And but it's in this instance, because it does come back later, the ballistics, which is also a very funny scene. In this instance, it's only proving that the gun was shot from much farther away than what she claimed. Because later they talk about the projectile and the angle of the bullets, which is also fucking hilarious.
And this is one of those things that she should have thought of.
But there's also one of the things. We kind of missed my slow motion death scene. Because
Oh yes,
Mr.
Mr.
Twice
Twice.
is hilarious, where his face is all contorted and whatever, and then he falls to the ground. But when she shoots Jim, there's this elaborate thing where because he's, a
Yes, we
bank
forgot.
manager,
Yes.
he's like stamping things, and he's still trying to work as he's dying. So he twists his body up and around, and he ends up like 5 feet away from where he should have fallen. So, I mean, it's a comedy show. I'm not gonna take this into too, but the bullet, it would have been messed up anyway because they're not dying in a natural way.
Now, Morton and Hayes would have sped up all that film.
Oh yeah,
like 100%. This is also shot on film and not Morton and Hayes's either video or shitty 90s TV film.
yeah.
Okay, so then this is when they go visit the widow
in Little Italy.
Little Italy.
And there's the backdrop of the Colosseum behind them in the car, because again, they're shooting, and this is a common theme in the show and probably in the movies, where he's in a car on a behind in front of a green screen, and they show the Colosseum behind him, and then they get to the wife's house, and there's the Leaning Tower of Pisa outside. So stupid, but beautiful.
That comes back later, that some of the other outside the windows are recognizable places. And this is like the big one to clue you in that you're supposed to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Because it's a better show than Morton Hayes or Automan
or anything else we've seen.
Anything else we've watched. Including Freaks and Geeks. Sorry, y'all.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they start questioning her and they apologize to bother her at a troubled time or when she's upset, but they're like, we couldn't really come earlier because your husband wasn't dead yet.
That was great. We would have come sooner, but your husband wasn't dead yet. That was so brilliant. That was so great. Okay. But there's this very comedically dramatic thing where she asks, don't you know what it's like to be married to a wonderful man? And Leslie Nielsen he practically, like, if it was, I wish it was on a stage, like, steps aside, has a spotlight on him, and starts waxing romantic about this time when he lived with a gym teacher with long, sinewy limbs and glistening body, like, about this time he lived with a man. And, like, I was waiting for the homophobia, but it never really came.
No, I mean, it's
not played for laughs, like, ha ha, insert slur here. It was
right. The whole, like, seeing how long Leslie Nielsen can successfully drag that out is the bit. Because you also then have Alan North interviewing her
continuing
on the side,
to interview,
and being an idiot too. Like, he's convinced eating chop suey has something to do with death rates or something. Like, he's like violent death if you had chop suey. Like, he's a fucking, and she's like, why are you asking me? He's like, oh, like, because he's an idiot.
I'm stabbing in the dark here.
While Leslie Nielsen's going on about it. And then it ends with, he's like, oh, the guy went off and got married at some point, had a couple kids. Well, I lived with his son for a year, but it just wasn't the same.
His father. I lived with his father for a year. It wasn't the same. You can never go back. You can never go back. It was so beautiful, but also a little bit like, it was funny, but it was also a little tragic. It was cute. Yeah, I loved that. And he is just perfect. He's perfect.
And then here, hold on. What do you want to do?
No. We were going to go on to, I think, one of your points about the bedside manner. Or this is my point about the bedside manner.
This is your point about bedside manner. I thought it was your point about the dentist.
No, but that was funny. No, the bedside manner thing. So she says, just kind of casually as an aside, like, what am I going to tell my daughter? And then they all start coming, because they're dumb cops, start coming up with, oh, you should tell him he got traded to this baseball team for this player. And I was like, what? And she's like, it just makes her cry even more. No, but what was the one, the monster one that you had? That was great. The daddy monster. He got eaten by the daddy monster.
No. Tell her that a monster took him to daddy heaven.
Yes.
And that's where I made the note that Leslie Nielsen is the airline pilot or the airplane captain, Peter Graves. Because he's just like, he's so out of it, and he only like sort of comes back to be inappropriate, right? Like, it's so good.
It was beautiful. I love that scene. And again, that aside about the relationship with the gym teacher, oh man, that was a little transgressive for ABC in 1982.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, I mean, because it starts with, it didn't work out because, people talk and, people are hateful and shit like that. Like yeah.
It was good.
It was good. So actually, we're about to get into the one joke that's problematic twice. In the next scene, we have Sally giving her statement at the station.
Oh, yeah.
She's having hors d'oeuvres from her personal butler, and she's wearing furs. So a very fucking Morton and Hayes bit.
She's wearing feathers. It's not
sorry,
fur. It's feathers.
I apologize.
It's okay.
It's one of those moments where you're like, did they watch this before they wrote their episodes of Morton and Hayes?
Yeah,
just go like, nobody will notice that we have the rich guys doing this. It's different. But so they're suspicious of her. The tall guy, the super tall guy, comes in, who might have even been a joke in an Airplane,
or in Naked Gun. But
he will be a joke in the Naked Guns. But I thought there might have been a tall guy at some point in an Airplane.
I mean, Kareem.
No,
but he doesn't stand up.
I don't remember.
I don't remember either.
And then so Frank and Alan North are standing there, and Frank looks like he's giving orders on an intercom about like things, and then instead we get the reverse shot, and he's giving these orders to a police officer who is a little person.
Yeah.
And
the joke is that you can't see him from the angle
because he's so short.
Because he's so small.
So womp womp. Yeah. So then it's commercial break in Act 2. Yankees 1, which I don't know if they're going to keep doing the Yankee or the Act 2 things. I imagine they're going to run out of jokes. We'll see. But
is this where they go back to do the reenactment?
This is where they go do the reenactment. And the way they reenact it is Frank just shoots various detectives dead trying to figure out the ballistics.
So they do the thing where they tie the string to the gun and they're trying to shoot it at different angles to get the appropriate angle of the bullet in the body. And there just ends up the end of the scene. He says he did it for 4 hours or something, or 7 hours. And like he's sitting smoking a cigarette or whatever he's doing. And there's a pile of dead bodies behind him. It was so fucking funny. Let's do that. Let's do some more of that. Let's do some more. That was so dumb.
Then he goes to see one of his stool pigeons.
The shoeshine boy. Yeah.
Named Johnny, who is played by, because he looks familiar.
He does look familiar.
William Dewell, who I thought was the little kid, but is not. William Dewell was in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, 1776, In and Out, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. He was on Ed for a season.
Aw. Remember Ed? That was so cute. Whatever.
I never watched all of it because
now that I think about it, it's probably kind of stalkery. Moving back to your hometown to try to win the heart of your married friend. Whatever.
It's fine. It was the 90s. Oh, cool. He's going to be on every episode. So he goes and talks to him, who reveals that Sally is actually an underworld figure and Sally is just one of her aliases.
Yeah.
So Frank goes off.
And that to investigate the orthodontist. Yeah.
Investigate the orthodontist. And I feel like there was something else in there. I can't remember, but then like there's some connective tissue because the all night wicker place is where he sends him next.
Because Sally had dated some guy who now works at the all night wicker store. Which was the silliest thing.
But as the scene ends, a priest comes over and he wants to talk to the stool pigeon about whether or not God is real. And the stool pigeon's like, do you mean like a insubstantial being or an anthropomorphized deity? And the priest is like, deity. He's like, all right. So cut to the all-night wicker place where we are watching just a stream of people walking out of the wicker store with their goods. And Frank questions this guy, getting the information to then go to the orthodontist, which is if you've ever had orthodontic work and you saw this before that, it would intentionally have terrified you
Yeah,
because
it
it
was,
is just a bunch of kids with funky mouth gear.
and things on their heads. The one kid comes out of the appointment like resting his chin on something and getting wheeled away because he can't hold his head up. It was terrifying. But did you notice the special cameo appearance? Not cameo.
Schwimmer?
Yeah, Schwimmer. Did you
I
notice
didn't.
him?
I did not in the thing. I noticed him in the credits. Yeah, that. I mean, that looks like a young Davy Schwimmer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I took a picture and sent it to my husband. That's why I have it on here.
sure it is.
I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. But yeah, so he goes in and there's a lot of great Foley work in the scene where he's per- so this is I don't know if this was a particular tactic of the police because it certainly wasn't in Dragnet if that's what it's intentionally lampooning, where he doesn't tell the orthodontist that he's investigating a crime. Instead he pretends to be somebody just
Patient.
in for an appointment. Yeah, he
Yeah.
pretends just to be a patient to try to get information. So there's this great Foley work where he's getting his in what is it, the indentations, whatever, where they take a plaster cast of your mouth, and he's got the little suction thing in there, and it's the most disgusting noise, and I hate it. I hated having braces. Oh my god, it was the worst. And then he's like digging through the file cabinet, which they don't keep filing cabinets in their actual appointment areas. But he has to keep getting the little suction thing because all of the spit is building up in his mouth. It was so stupid. I loved it.
So good. So good.
So
We
good.
missed the only joke that I didn't really think was that funny, which is the receptionist.
Oh yeah, with the window.
The receptionist walks around with a sliding window. So in her first shot, we see the slide open and she calls the next patient and then she closes the slide. But then we reveal that she's actually carrying the window around.
Yeah.
I was hoping that like it was going to be something weird, like the window was down near the floor. So she was like calling up at them or something. Like it's just silly. It's fine because
the rest of it is good.
The rest of it's good. Leslie Nielsen's just physical comedy here is incredible because he like gets caught on the cord. He has to run back all the time for more suction. So good. He gets it all over himself.
And he gets it all over the dentist.
He gets it all over the dentist when he
which
gets
is
back.
Gross. Which is gross.
He's checked the files and he sees that Sally has paid her full bill. Mm-hmm. So she's paid off now. Where could she have gotten that $1,200? So he starts roughing up the orthodontist when he gets back, spitting on him. But he's talking to him with his mouth full of the suction thing and whatever gears in his mouth.
Yeah.
And the joke is the dentist can understand all the complicated things he's saying.
And we can't.
Until the end when...
So he gets the information he wants out of the orthodontist, and the orthodontist is freely giving him this information. He's like, "You're an animal," and then to your point,
with his mouth full,
Drebin
says, "I am not an animal. I am a human being," which is a line from Island of Lost Souls, I think, 1933. But nice. He's spitting on him with the thing.
It's so gross.
It's so great.
Props to that man who played the orthodontist for allowing Leslie Nielsen to spit all over. So gross. Oh,
that's how I got my SAG card. I was the only one who'd.
Oh, that was so gross. Okay. So then he goes back to his office to try to talk to Sally, right? Or is there something else in between? Because
it's the office bit where he and the captain are riding up the elevator and they keep passing weird floors. Like one floor, I can't remember what the first floor is, but there's a swimming pool on there that starts with a swimmer getting onto the elevator with them, riding it up to the swimming pool, getting off, and there's a rear screen projection outside of the swimming pool.
I wish, and I know they couldn't do it because of the mechanics of it, but I wish that she had just like walked straight out onto a diving board and dived into the pool, but they couldn't do it that way. She had to go to the right and then go around to have the projector project her.
This isn't, you know.
I
the
know.
future. It's not the future yet. Maybe in the special editions. Maybe Zaz will do this as special editions.
Yeah, you think?
Except it'll be Nazified because they'd be doing it today. So yeah, they're gonna give Sally the rope and hopefully she's gonna hang herself in the noose. And so Frank tricks her by calling up and pretending to be another he pretends. Does he pretend?
He pretends to be the orthodontist.
Yes.
With the bill in front of him that's paid in full, with the money that's in front of him, and this is where Drebin decides to play maybe a little dangerously by claiming that the money is all traceable.
Yes. So she freaks out.
But he's disguising his voice, and this is our plan for our professional podcast, by just placing that old-fashioned way, just placing a towel over the receiver of the phone.
Yes.
That's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do for our professional podcast.
And when people hear it, is it going to be the other voice? Because when we hear him talking at the end of the line, it's the other actor.
It's the other guy. It was great. So good.
So good. But then, so yeah, they're going to meet at Cherry and Galena Streets. And at this point, there's a Washington, D.C. background. Now, in the Naked Gun movies, it famously takes place in Los Angeles. At this point, we're in Backlot City. Like, there's no definition of where
Backlot USA.
Yeah. So we go out there. We see her on the street. She's in front of an Army hat store. And they also do a lot of gags with the background set dressing. So it's an Army hat store known as Military Millinery.
Yeah, I thought that was great.
So good. But then Frank comes out of the building to talk to her and is like, she's like, I'm just waiting for someone. And she's like, oh, yeah, those doctors keep you waiting. And so she runs or something, and they eventually sit down on a bench for him to tell her how he's figured out who she is and how she done it. And he keeps pulling wigs off of her.
Yes, this wig reveal gag is pretty great. So she's, got all these other aliases, but this one's a redhead, pulls off her blonde wig, and this one's a brunette, pulls off her red-haired wig. This one's was a
Rachel
singer.
Donzanell.
Yeah, Rachel Dolezal. This one was a backup singer for Aretha Franklin. It could have been worse.
It could have been so much worse. I was actually waiting for blackface.
I was waiting for blackface. It's just an afro wig.
Just an afro wig.
Still bad, but I was expecting worse.
Yeah,
because I saw Kentucky Fried Movie, so I know how bad it could have been. And then she reveals herself like she just re-upped with the Marines and pulls off the afro wig to reveal a very short G.I. Jane style haircut. And then there's a little shootout. Yeah.
She runs behind some garbage cans while Frank takes cover behind the park bench or by the whatever.
Which is apparently bulletproof. Way to go.
Which is bulletproof. I think that it's that bullets weren't that strong before Republicans made them stronger in 1994. She doesn't have an AR-15 because it's 1982. So that would be a trip to see to see Zaz try to do this, but still make it about how Kyle Rittenhouse is a fucking hero. Anyway, garbage fucking people. So then we get a long shot where we reveal that they're about 5 feet apart shooting at each other.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Hilarious.
Awesome. Hilarious. Then Frank gets out a megaphone to tell her she's surrounded, to give it up. We hear other sirens. More cops get there. They arrest her. We get some jokes from the captain and Frank where it's sergeants take her away and book her.
Yeah.
It's sergeants take her away and Sergeant Booker.
Yeah.
And then, this one too. Charlie the Hunchback is not awesome.
I got this tip from a hunchback at the office.
Yeah.
And
it's Charlie. Yeah. He came out to get thanked. So then we get to our epilogue where she went to Statesville prison.
He comes in wearing military style bullet belts.
Yes. And takes those
Rambo
off.
style. That was silly. Also, a dream of police police officers everywhere, probably.
Oh, and this is where Al, the tall guy's eating a banana.
Yeah.
And Frank's like, hey, you got something on your face. He's like, no, 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 other side. And so Al cleans it off screen because Al's always too tall for the shot. And half his banana falls off onto the desk.
That
so
was
that's
good.
the gag. And then the episode's over. So we got to do the freeze frame a la Automan. Except they stand there and
the actors are actually just standing as still as possible, but of course the gag is Alan North can't do it, so he's blinking a lot and sort of like moving his mouth because he's trying to keep a like kind of a laugh on his face.
Yeah.
But it hurts, and so he's like stretching his mouth a little bit. And by the end of it, even Leslie Nielsen is sort of like his eyeballs kind of move off to the side because he's trying. Oh God, so good,
so good, so good. No,
and the music, it's great.
It's great, and it's like
what a wonderful treat. Thank you for choosing this.
I'm glad that I didn't I think the police, the first Naked Guns are all right. Like, I've never seen the third one still just because, I don't know, it had some release problems because one of the actors killed his wife and her fucking DoorDash delivery guy. Like,
before DoorDash, yeah.
Before DoorDash. So that got screwed up. But I don't think it was even without that issue, I think it had sort of, because it was post Hot Shots. So I
was just looking up Hot Shots. Is that them too?
That's at least one of them, if not some of them, because they sort of broke
written
up.
By Jim Abrams.
Yeah. So Jim Abrams, and then they started doing the scary movies after the Wayans brothers stopped, but the Wayans brothers still acted in them. So there's like this whole descent into spoof type stuff that ended with them being white supremacists. So, slippery slope.
Yeah.
They'll be doing something about how the insurrectionist heroes of January 6th for, I don't know, the first original Fox News movie or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, at this point in 1982, on the other hand, they were fucking incredible. And I don't know if I certainly can't think of a sitcom episode this tight. Like, it's one of those things where it's so constantly funny that you watch it and you're like, why aren't all sitcoms? Like, why do we have unfunny sitcoms?
Yeah.
Right? Like, why isn't everything making me laugh this hard, this much, for this
consistently
long?
Yeah.
Right. You want to do like a gentle family sitcom, make it 32 minutes. Right? Like, you want to, because this doesn't have any character development. It doesn't have any like subplots, really. No, there aren't any subplots. It's just moving from interviewee to interviewee and throughout the procedural aspect of it. It's so lean. It's so perfect, yet it's just always funny.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see. I assume they're going to have to run out of steam toward the end, but I don't know. Because 6 episodes,
I'm not sure. Yeah,
I think they might be able to make it because they certainly ran out of jokes. Because their next movie after this was Top Secret with Val Kilmer, which I recall being a disaster. Even though it has some fans, I recall it being. It's like 78 minutes, and you're just like, half the movie seems to be missing at some point. Like it seems like it was a disaster production that just something didn't work out. But this, so it just
beautiful,
wonderful stuff.
Agreed. Let's see what the next episode is called anyway. Again, it's one of those things that's like, it doesn't really matter because it has nothing to do with the thing. And we can't talk about the plot because there's so like that's literally all there is, because like you said, there's no character development or anything. There's just the plot and gags that support the plot. So episode 2, which we'll talk about next time, is called Ring of Fear, or A Dangerous Assignment. I don't even want to give away the guest star because, it's just such a brief little interlude that it's not even worth it. But I'm very excited. Thank you again for picking this.
I'm so glad I did.
It's such a sweet, sweet relief. From the norm.
From the norm, yes. From these heights, we will have to find one hell of a pit to dive into.
No.
Oh yeah.
Oh no.
Oh yeah. I don't even know what's. We can't find you your Bobcat gold. Enough of your Bobcat gold. No, not Bobcat. That would have probably been okay. What's his face?
Bob Saget?
Pauly Shore.
Oh,
No,
Pauly Shore. Yeah.
Shore. Yeah. The Pauly Show for some reason is not available.
Oh no.
Even though, Police Squad remastered for Blu-ray, the Pauly Shore Show, not strange. But anyway, yes, this was. I don't know how we're going to do this with a good show again. Like this is going to be weird.
It's going to be real weird. It's going to be real weird. I'm going to savor it the next 5 weeks. It's going to be beautiful.
Delightful. So on that note, unless you can think of anything else.
No, thank you for listening, everybody. See you next time. Bye.